He promised to return, but the truth she discovered came long after she stopped waiting. It was a simple promise, the kind people make without thinking twice. "I'll come back." He had said it so easily, so confidently, like there was no version of the future where he wouldn't. And she believed him. Of course she did. Because when someone looks at you the way he looked at her, you don't question their words. Her name was Leora, and for a long time she built her days around that promise. The last time she saw him, the sky was turning gold, the kind of sunset that feels like it's trying to hold on to something before it disappears. "Don't look at me like that," he said softly, noticing her silence. "Like what?" she asked. "Like I'm leaving for good." She forced a small smile. "You're not?" He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. "I'll be back before you even have time to miss me." The same words, the same certainty, the kind that makes doubt feel unnecessary. So she let him go. Not because she wanted to, but because she trusted him. At first, the waiting didn't hurt. It felt normal, almost comforting. She would wake up each morning expecting a message, a call, something to remind her that distance didn't mean absence. Days passed, then weeks. The messages stopped, the calls never came. But she didn't panic, not yet, because promises take time. And she had faith. Everyone else noticed before she did. "You haven't heard from him?" her friend asked carefully. Leora shook her head. "He's probably just busy." The words came easily. Too easily. Because sometimes, believing something is easier than facing the possibility that it isn't true. But time has a way of forcing reality into view. Weeks turned into months, and silence became louder. The kind of silence that doesn't just sit in the background, it presses against you, demands your attention, refuses to be ignored. Still, she waited. Not because she was naive, but because letting go felt like giving up on something that once felt real. "He'll come back," she whispered to herself some nights, just to hear it out loud, just to make it feel true. But eventually, even hope begins to fade. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly. Until one day, you realize you've stopped expecting, stopped looking, stopped believing. And that's when she changed. She stopped sitting by the window, stopped checking her phone every few minutes, stopped replaying his voice in her mind. Not because she forgot, but because she couldn't hold on to it anymore. Life moved on, as it always does. New routines, new distractions, new ways to fill the space he left behind. And for a while, it worked. Until the day everything came back. It started with a name, not his, someone else's, mentioned casually in a conversation she almost didn't pay attention to. "It was years ago," someone was saying. "No one really talks about it anymore." Leora wasn't listening. Not really. Until he never made it back. Her heart skipped, because something about those words felt familiar, felt too close. She turned slightly. "Who are you talking about?" she asked. The conversation paused. The people exchanged looks, hesitant, eye uncertain. "Just someone from before," one of them said, but that wasn't enough, not anymore. "What happened?" she asked again, her voice quieter now but sharper, more focused. Another pause, and then there was an accident. The world shifted. Just slightly, but enough. "Who?" she asked, her heart already knowing the answer. Even before it came, they said his name and everything inside her stopped. "No," she whispered, because that didn't make sense. That couldn't be true. "He said he'd come back." The words slipped out before she could stop them. The room went quiet, because suddenly, they understood. "You didn't know?" someone asked softly. Leora shook her head slowly, her mind racing, trying to piece together something that refused to fit. "No, no, that's not right. He would have told me. Someone would have told me." But no one had. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't reach you when it should. Sometimes it gets lost, delayed, buried under time and silence. The details came slowly, hard to hear, harder to accept. It had happened not long after he left. A sudden accident, unexpected, final. There had been no time, no chance to send a message, no way to keep his promise. Leora felt the ground beneath her shift, because everything she had believed, everything she had built around his absence, was wrong. He hadn't chosen to stay away. He hadn't forgotten. He hadn't broken his promise. He just couldn't keep it. And somehow, that truth hurt more than anything else. Because anger would have been easier. Rejection would have been clearer. But this was something else. This was loss, delayed, grief, postponed, a goodbye that never came, finally arriving. Too late. She sat in silence, the conversation fading around her because nothing else mattered now. Only one thought, one realization. He never came back, because he couldn't. The words felt heavy, real, unavoidable, and suddenly, all those days she spent waiting, all those nights she held onto hope, they meant something different now. They weren't wasted. They weren't foolish. They were real, because the promise had been real, even if the ending wasn't. That night she went back to the place where she last saw him. The same view, the same quiet space, the same sky, now fading into another sunset. She stood there for a long time, saying nothing, thinking everything. And finally, she whispered softly into the fading light. I waited. Her voice didn't break. It didn't need to, because the truth had already done that. I really waited. A small pause. Then, I just wish I knew why. The wind moved gently around her, carrying nothing back, no answer, no voice, just silence. But this time, the silence felt different, not empty, not confusing, just final. Because sometimes, the hardest truth isn't that someone didn't come back.